We're in this together. I feel like this was a very popular phrase used in the height of the global pandemic in 2020. We were all dealing with things in our own way. We were at home alone or with our families. Things were shut down. There was so much unknown and so much uncertainty. I was pregnant with our youngest, and his delivery happened in May. I kept hearing this phrase, but I didn't feel that there was truly much togetherness. It didn't feel as though there were many people who believed we're in this together. It felt a little more like I'm in this by myself. I'm worried about myself. You're on your own. When I went to the hospital for my scheduled C-section with Anakin, from the check-in to the spinal tap to the C-section to the recovery and everything in between and after, it was not the normal togetherness that I experienced my first 2 times around. And I was struggling. In verse 30, Paul says, "We are in this struggle together. You have seen my struggle in the past, and you know that I am still in the midst of it." Right before Paul says this, he says, it's a privilege to trust in Christ. Yeah, okay, check. Yeah, good. But Paul also says it's a privilege to suffer for Christ. Wait, what? If you're like me, you don't necessarily call it a privilege to suffer. Suffer for Christ, though? Nah, I still don't think I want to say that. I say I have more of a strong aversion to suffering and struggling. However, what I learned through the struggle of bringing my 3rd child into the world in the midst of a pandemic is that even though it felt like others weren't together, I had all the together that I needed. I had Christ right there with me, and I had my husband. We were familiar with the process and the pain. And all that suffering, well, it was worth it. It was a privilege to have a child, one of the greatest privileges that I know many people struggle with. And yes, there were struggles and suffering, but there was also joy and hope. I learned that I could handle it when I knew that Christ was with me, along with another person that I trusted. And this is where Paul was. They were familiar with each other, and they knew the suffering that Paul had faced. Paul knew that he had people praying for him, rooting for him, and advancing the message of Christ by delivering his letters like this one. When we are in this together, there is hope and joy to be found, even in the worst of our struggles. But the together is key. We aren't meant to go through life, especially when struggling, alone. If you are struggling today, I challenge you to find someone to be together with you in it. Don't do it alone. You weren't meant to. Yes, Christ is present, but we were created for community with God and also with others. It may require a level of vulnerability that you aren't used to, and that's okay. Get vulnerable anyway. People often want to show up for each other, to encourage one another, and to pray for each other. The struggle is not going to last forever. There is hope, but don't struggle alone. After all, we're in this together.